Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to make rock paper scissors game. This game won't be something like you normally see in the Apple Store or Play Store. It would be the simple game, and it contains some of the important module looping, and basically it will also contain the conditional statement. So by the end of this lecture, you will get a good grasp on how this looping and a conditional statement can be used in your simple game. So let's get started. So first of all, as always, we'll just open your cell, that is ideally cell, and we'll just create a new script and we'll just save this as rock paper scissors, which would be, let me say, rps and py here, and just save it on your, that is, a desktop or the folder that you have just allocated for this lecture or this course. So first of all, what you need to do is import this random module. So instead of just importing everything from the random module, what we are saying here is from random. That means from this random module, we'll just import only one method, that is randint method. So now using this statement, what you are saying is instead of everything from this random module, so if you just go in this documentation part, then you could see in this module, in this R, you could see here the random, and you could see the method, that is bunch of a method over here, which is seed method, get state, and rand range over here, choice method, and you could see here random method, and basically this all method. So instead of just importing all of these method, what we are really interested is in this randint method. So basically it will just return a random integer such that a is inside this n and b is inside this n. So inside this range, it will just generate any of the number. That means we'll just make use of this randint. So if we just call something like random.choice over here, it won't be executed because the choice is basically not inside this randint. So you have just imported the randint, not the choice. So now what you need to do is make use of this randint. So before that, let me just create the list of a play option. So let me just comment it out for you. So create a list, that is, we'll just create a list of play option. So if you just have ever played the rock paper scissors game, then you could get the play option like rock, paper, or a scissor. So we'll just create that in this list. So first would be rock, and the next would be our paper, and the next and the last one would be our scissor. So I'll just say scissors over here, and this is our play option. So after just creating this play option, I'll just say computer first. So computer is our next player. So computer should just pick any of these from the random. So basically we'll make use of this randint. So before that, I'll just say t, which is basically getting this list. So what if I want to just get this? Let me just comment it out for you. So if I have a list something like 1 2 3, and if I just want to just grab any of this element, you normally do, that is a, and give this, that is square bracket. So we'll just do that, that is giving this square bracket to get any of this element. So after that, what you need to do is we just make use of this randint, and we'll just say o comma 2. So what we really mean here is normally the list start from O, and this is 1 and this is 2. So it will generally generate any of these based on the number, that is from 0 to 2. So if I just get something like O, when this randint basically returns us, that is 0 value, then it will just be something like computer would be our rock. This will be if the randint, this method, randint method, will return us a 0 value, and if it is returns 1, then the computer would be paper, and the last one is 2 if the computer will just be like scissor over here. So it should be random, so there should not be any bias over here for the computer. That means it should be random, and we have make use of this randint to generate the random number from 0 to 2, and based on that we'll just generate the move, that is rock paper scissors, for our computer. So next is to player, and the player false is basically to set the player for the false, and now it's time to make our main loop. I'll just say while player is false. So while the player is false, this loop is going to run, and first of all we'll just set player to true. So before that we'll say player, and this player should be input from the user. So I'll just say rock, paper or scissor for the user. So this is the message that should be given to the user to select between this rock, paper or scissors. So let me just give this one out here, and we have now input from the user that could be either rock, paper and scissor. So after that what you need to do is we'll just say if player, which is our player, is basically a computer. So if he's a computer, that means the move that is selected by the player is same as selected by the computer, that is in this case that means you have to just print tie. So I'll just say tie, and after this move is done, now it's time to check for the rock. So first of all I'll say player, and if the player is basically a rock, so if he's a rock, then what you need to do is to check if the computer is basically a paper or a scissor. So we have next to move, so I'll just say computer is basically a paper, which is our second play option, and I'll just say paper. If it is a case of a paper, so if you have ever played this rock, paper, scissor, then in that case the print for this message basically, which is the message that should be printed to the user, should be you lose, because in this case the computer has won because paper will be just wrapping this rock. So we'll just say you lose, and we'll just bring this down, and in this else part, if it is the case that the computer is our scissor, that means you have to just print you own. So I'll just say you won. You can just format this message according to your need. So I'll just say you own over here. So after that, next is to check for the another move, that is our another move over here. So let me just format it with the good message over here. Instead of just you lose, I'll just say you lose, and first of all I'll just make over here that is computer, which is our computer move, and I'll just say covers, which is basically rock. So in this case we have a paper, so paper will cover rock. So I'll just say here player. So this will be the message that will be shown to the user. So in this case you own, and I'll say computer, which is our computer, which in this case is a move, so it should be outside over here. And let me say first computer, and computer basically will just smashes. So first it should be player, not a computer, because player is a rock. So I'll say player smashes our computer, which is in this case the scissor. So scissor is basically the loser over here, which is a computer. So player is a rock, and if it is a rock, that means you just smashes the computer, which is scissor here. But if it is a player, that is the rock, and the computer is a paper, then you lose, because computer, which is in this case paper, will cover the rock. So we'll just check for the next move over here in this elif part, which is if the player is paper. So let's go down here and check for the another condition after this elif, and I'll just say the next move over here, which would be if the player is a paper. Elif, I'll just say player is paper. So in this case it should be paper, and if it is the case, we'll just check for the computer now. So if the computer in that case is, let me say scissor, so I'll say scissors, not a scissor, it should be scissors. Then what you need to do is we'll just print the another message, and basically that message would be our you lose again. You lose because the computer will just caught that player, so scissor will just caught that player, and the next move will be in this else part, and the else part will be the winning move for our player. So it should be you own. You own would be our message. You win, let me say you win, and this should be the message to the player, because in this case player, which is the paper, will cover our rock, which is our computer. So next last move will be our player move if it is the scissor. So next is the play option. We have covered for the rock, we have covered for the paper, so last one would be our player when the player is scissor. So if it is a scissor, then first of all we have to check for the computer, and if it is the computer, the case that the move is the rock, which should be basically the random by this statement. And if it is a rock, then we'll just say print message again, and I'll just say you lose. And in this case computer, which is obviously the rock, will smash our scissor. So I'll say smashes, and it should be scissor, that is our player. So we have just formatted this message over here. So next is to check for the else part, which is in this case the computer is the paper. Then I'll just say print, and it should be our you win message, and basically you have won because the player, so let me just say player, which is scissor, will just cut our computer move, which is the case where we have this computer as a paper. So you have won in that case, and we'll just put the else part at the last, which should be print. And if it is not the case that you have just inputted something of this value, which is rock paper scissor, that means you should be given a message that should be that is not a valid move. So I'll just print this down, and now it's time to just set the player false 1 again to continue with this loop. So this loop will basically continue, so that means this player should be just false. Now it's time to just make a computer to just check one more time, that is this t, and basically we'll just make use of again this randint and on2 for the another movement. So this statement will give a continue looping or continue selection of this movement or of this play option by the computer within this loop. So until this loop will execute, that means your game is running. So you have to just get this idea, because we have just used a simple programming here, that is using this conditional statement, using this loop, which is our main loop over here, and we make use of this print statement to give the messages to the user, and this randint method in order to just give the random choice from this o,2 value. So if you could wonder, we haven't used something that is a random.randint over here. So if you just see here, we haven't used this random.randint. So this was because we have imported like this. So if you have just imported something like import only the random, that means you have to call your randint like random.randint. But we have just imported only the randint from this random module. That means this method, randint method, should not be called like this. It can be called directly over here. So let me save this down one more time, and let me just run this game. Then you could see player is not defined over here, which is basically our case. So let me just go down here. It should be player, and let me just check it one more time over here. So let me save this down again, and let me print it again. So it is saying rock paper scissors, so let me just say rock, then you lose, paper covers rock, and the paper was basically the move or a play option of our computer, and computer has won here. So let me say paper one more time over here, and it should be paper, and you win. So basically you win means we have now this, in the case with this computer has selected a paper, and basically our player, which is scissor, has caught our computer, which is a player, which is obviously the paper in this case. So let me just run it one more time, and you could see the same game, and let me say rock one more time, and you could see tie over here. This is the same selection that is computer has done, is a rock. And let me say rock one more time, and let me see the output. Then it is saying you won Rock Smashes Scissors. So you can play around with this game. You can also change some of this concept or some of this logic to make more robust game. So see you in the next one.